Please give us your remarks.
Thank you, and thank you for holding this panel today and for taking the time to request and review online comments as well. I think those of us in the room often spend our time advocating on behalf of the people who are really engaged in the sharing economy, but the most important thing government can do is to hear from them in person or in this case online. I know thousands of people have engaged in this forum who aren't in the room, so I'm very appreciative of that. This is a critical time for government and for these platforms because now is the time when government and industry can develop best practices. To develop these practices is going to be tough, but we need to figure out how to encourage innovation and personal empowerment. We're all engaged in these discussions around the world. This is an important step because we found that the more people learn about the sharing economy, the more they support it. The biggest foe we face is not any one industry or any group, it's actually misinformation about what's going on in the world. And as we've already seen today, there's even a dispute within people dealing in the sharing economy with what the sharing economy really is, what companies are doing in terms of sharing versus profit. So the good news is for government regulators that online platforms like Airbnb have, I think, lessened, probably not surprisingly, I think that, the need for strong government intervention. Consumers now have more information and choices than ever before, and it's increasingly the case that online reputation systems that reward good behavior and punish bad behavior are serving much of the purposes generally served by regulation. In the past, customers had no choice but to hail a taxi or use a hotel. They didn't know much about what they were getting into, but now they have choices. They can understand the pros and cons of those choices. So the government has a role and can play a strong role, but that role, I think, must change with the times. As consumers have more information, consumers need less protection. I am the head of global public policy for Airbnb, and I travel around the world on behalf of our hosts and our guests. And I've seen firsthand for about 3 years now how many regular people are being helped by the sharing economy. Tens of millions of people are benefiting with a little extra time, a little extra money, a more social experience. They spend more time with their family. They can pay for medicine. A majority of our hosts say they will rely on the income from Airbnb just to stay in their homes. So they get to stay in the neighborhoods they grew up in. They get to pay the rent. They get to pay the mortgage. That's a big deal. Our company was founded in 2008 and is pretty simple. It's a trusted community marketplace for people to list, discover, and book unique accommodations. Since 2008, over 35 million guests have had a safe and positive experience on Airbnb. 35 million guests. More than 25 million of those guests are in the last year alone. We've worked hard to provide tools and resources that promote transparency and trust, and we're proud to be a global leader in providing education on these issues for our community. To us, trust is the most important thing. The only reason people use our platform is for the transparency and trust. Our only product is really that transparency and that trust. We provide tools, but the real transaction is between guests and hosts, travelers and people who live in cities, and all we're doing is helping facilitate those transactions. Through sharing economy platforms like ours, consumers have access to more services and more information about those services than ever before. Millions of people are now empowered to help make ends meet, whether it's with apartments, cars, power tools, or their own time. A lot of people just use their own time in downtime to provide services to others now where they couldn't before because they can connect with people who need those services. Data shows pretty clearly that Airbnb attracts new visitors who stay longer in cities. They spend more on local businesses. They stay in locations different than traditional hotel districts, and they're more likely to return to that city based on their experience. All the while, hotels are as full as they've ever been and are able to charge historically high rates. So there's pretty clear proof in the data that we can all live amongst each other. It's not a zero-sum game. More and more people are coming into the tourism market, partly because of us, partly because of hotels, partly just the nature of the world getting smaller, and everyone can benefit. Cities benefit enormously from Airbnb stays. We brought more than $1 billion into New York alone last year, and that's even before they're allowing us to pay hotel taxes, which we've asked to be able to pay and so far cannot. But the broader economic benefits are not just to cities, it's actually to the individuals. So many hosts, as I said, depend on this extra income to avoid foreclosure, stay where they grew up, spend a little more time at home. The lists of how people use this time and money just goes on and on and on. People have started businesses, written books, become musicians, spent that last year with their parents. Just an incredible list. Bottom line is rumors and borders have existed for hundreds and probably thousands of years. It's an age-old activity. Governments haven't paid much attention to it in the past. The irony is that now that it's more public and more transparent and safer online, governments are paying more attention. And I think it's at the very moment that governments are paying the most attention that they don't need to pay as much attention. And so I think the most important thing is education and forums like this where we can get the word out about what the sharing economy is and is not. We do think regulation, fair regulation is needed around this. Not every company is responsible. Governments shouldn't stop paying attention, but I think this new information sharing between consumers, ratings and background checks, online reputation really makes it a lot easier for consumers to get what they need. So we've seen San Jose and Amsterdam and Paris and London and a number of other cities come the right way and pass laws allowing home sharing, and we think there's going to be a lot more in the future. There is a balance to be struck here to differentiate between businesses and individuals. People doing something once in a while with their own property to make ends meet is something very different than someone doing it full-time as a business in multiple locations or with multiple cars. And I think it's important to get into those differences here today. So I'm glad we're here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, David.